Welcome back. We have Jill versus Srajan, and the game is currently in progress. Let's jump in and see how it's going. Um, we've got Jill taking the center with the white pieces, and looks like we might go into the French defense. The French defense goes here and challenges the center, and white has to choose whether or not they want to capture or push or defend. And this is a good response for black. The only problem is this pawn kind of blocks in the bishop, and it's kind of a theme of the opening. You have to figure out how to compensate for that. But we see a little bit of a different opening. Srajan plays b5 here, and maybe the plan to bring out the bishop early, kind of avoid that blockade of the e6 pawn. White attacks it right away. Black defends. White develops both knights to the center, and black plays c5 here. And usually for the French, this is played after the move d5. The idea is to force a trade of these pawns. With playing this move first, white has the option of pushing the pawn past. Um, Instead, we see captures, captures, and white's planning to fianchetto the light squared bishop and try and take control of the diagonal. Black goes for early queen development here, lining up the pieces to focus on the now weak f2 pawn. Not weak because the piece moved away, just weak because this pawn can easily be targeted just due to the fact that the king is the only defender of it. We have bishop coming back, supported by the pawn, but it's only supported by the pawn. You could see captures, captures, and then queen captures with check. You end up with the queen on e3 here, right in front of the king. You're gonna have to block it, but might be uncomfortable. We don't see that. We see black playing d5 here, kind of the delayed French, and white developing a piece, getting all the minor pieces off of the back rank, and doing it ahead of black. Black develops a piece, preparing castling. White castles, black attacks, and going for those weakened pawns. The weakened pawn, the weakened diagonal here. Now we have three pieces lining up on this diagonal. These pieces are really not adequately defended at the moment. You're probably going to have to bring the queen in or something. And this is a good option, trading off one of the attackers and now defending it. And now black has only got two attackers, and it's not quite as scary. Black may be trying to bring a third attacker. White tries to kick out the piece, and we see the classic counterattack. Will it work this time? So black leaves the piece hanging to attack another piece, and the question is going to be, can white respond to the attack in such a way that attacks another piece? If they can, this is bad for black, and it looks like the knight attack taking the pawn threatens the queen, which means both the queen and the knight are going to be hanging. It looks like this is a case where the counterattack is not the best play. Instead, we see bishop captures, which eyes the knight but doesn't really threaten to capture it. Now we have time to retreat the other knight, and we've caught up to real time now. Both players have 4 minutes on the clock, and now this piece threatens to capture the bishop. Bishop's worth maybe slightly more than the knight, so that might be a desirable capture. Maybe bringing the piece back, or trading off a knight is an option. Now you've given up both your bishops. Black's the only one with a bishop. And this developing move actually looks pretty good, putting you on the diagonal to both threaten the knight and threaten mate if it moves. So it actually threatens mate two ways, because if the queen goes to the corner, the king can't escape to the square it's currently occupied by a pawn. So a move like knight h4 doesn't even block the mate. It defends the two squares but misses the third. So the only option after this bishop move is to defend the piece. And then at that point, black could kind of look to try and distract the queen away. Maybe trying to take the piece, or trying to double up the rooks and trying to distract the queen. That's looking pretty good. I think this black's going to eventually see this. The bishop has very few good squares. Lining this up for an attack is kind of the only thing that makes sense here. So it's going to be hard to miss. White's lined up on this file, which means black can't immediately bring out a piece. With this bishop on this square, there's some back rank problems. So you have to be careful. The king can't move forward. Jill down to under 3 minutes, coming up with a plan. If I'm white here, I'm not sure what to do. I'd be worried about this diagonal, and this might be part of the plan to add a defense to this weak knight here. Oh, but we see black just captures it. It goes undefended, and I guess I missed that. It's not defended at all. You can just capture it, and this is going to. Now the bishop move is a really tough threat here. This square is very awkward for white to defend. Already you probably need to try to kick the queen out immediately, not give the bishop time to come to the b7 square. If the bishop comes to b7 with the queen on f3, it's over. There's no defense to this. The king can try and run, but it's touchy. So this is the right move, kicking the queen out. Queen's got to go back to one of these two squares. Probably c6 is the only one that really makes sense. Still you want this this attack here. The material advantage now of capturing the knight right away is going to be helpful, rather than we could have lined up the mate attack, and that may have worked, but there may have been a defense to it. There was ways to defend the knight, so capturing the material right away is strong. Now Jill needs to make quick moves here to stay in the game. Down to almost a minute. Srajan's got a 2-minute time advantage now, and you see lining up the threading the mate here on two different squares is going to be very hard to block. Probably a pawn push is going to be required now, just to block the diagonal, which really is going to weaken the pawns. They're not going to be able to defend each other well, and but you kind of need it anyway, so that the queen can guard this square. I don't really see a lot of options here. You can't throw the knight in the way, and this doesn't block the mate now. There's two mates hanging, and Srajan finds it, and the first game goes to him. All right, waiting here for the rematch. And tough when you're down on time. Jill had 30 seconds there at the end there. You feel very rushed, and hard to defend a mate attack like that with 30 seconds on the clock. Okay, so now we see sort of a inverse French here. Definitely interesting. I think Uh, yeah, we've sort of transitioned into another position. So maybe just blocking with the pawn is a good idea here, forcing the bishop to move again. Yeah, that's good. Bishop has to retreat. You don't want to retreat to this square because then it can just be attacked again with a move that kind of helps black more than it helps white. White going for early development. This is good. Black maybe spending a lot of turns on pawn development, which can work out, can give you good spaces to play around the pawn structure. But if white kind of pushes you around with some forcing moves, you could find yourself behind in development, as all the minor pieces are still in the starting rank. So this move probably unnecessary. It kind of damages the option of castling kingside because there's not going to be close by pawns to defend the king. Now maybe our option is castling queenside, which means these pawns will have to stay in their place. It's already not ideal that the c pawn is moved because the king's going to have to castle, then move again. These pieces also have to get out of the way, so we're looking at a minimum of 5 moves for the king to get to some relative safety here. So there is, a really good lead in development here for white. White's planning now to put this bishop on this diagonal where it can put a lot of pressure. If this pawn ever moves, the rook is going to fall. So a lot of pieces also have to move to get that rook to safety. Okay. And okay, I'm back. What did I miss? Yeah, bishop came to the diagonal, like we said, and pawn move. And this pawn sort of gives black what they want, giving white what they want, weakening the e5 square. It loses a defender, and it only had 2. And now white's got more attackers, and it immediately falls. Black, instead of recapturing, which is just a trade and kind of doesn't help because it puts, already black's in some trouble here because this diagonal is going to open up and the rook's going to fall. So the check probably doesn't help things. It could be blocked with the pawn, but that closes off the bishop. So Srajan goes for blocking the check with the knight instead, keeping the attack on the rook going. And after takes, now the rook is under attack and there's no way to save it. Oh, I take that back. So the only move to save it is a knight move, which is defended by the queen. But looks like Jill didn't see that, and this bishop could be captured, but with the piece going backwards. And now the rook is still under attack. Only move to save it again is this knight move, throwing up a barrier. Luckily, the queen's on a square where it can aid to the defense here. If that wasn't possible, there's no way for... you need 2 moves to move a piece and then move the rook. So it's typically a very troubling spot. And Jill misses the defensive tactic and resigns the game, which means Srajan is going to be our winner there. Well played. Congrats to him.